Gemma, this is one of the astounding things about this narrative. You can all have whatever policy preferences you might have, but in all those elections, the party that won, including Gillard in 2010, said no carbon price. Yet they seem to want to foist the price on us regardless of the elections.
Well, that's at the heart of any zealotry, though, isn't it, Chris? Any kind of ideology, whether it's environmental, whether it's social, doesn't particularly want to be acquainted with the facts. And I think the terrible thing about that story, and I did see snippets of it last week, is it's not honest because it's not full. And you can't prosecute an argument from a place of failing to disclose the relevant facts. I mean, even in that first grab that you played around, these fires were caused by climate change. They were caused by arsonists. They were caused by years and years of failure to manage appropriately the bushland areas that were overstocked, and there had been no strategic burning off like they do here in Western Australia. I mean, it's just sins of omission rather than sins of commission. And more broadly, that is the fundamental problem with those trying to prosecute that argument in this country. The electorate knows it's a dishonest argument because it's conveniently leaving out the facts that tell the full picture. We're not as stupid as they like to make us out to be. Well,
this is the thing, Jack. It insults everybody's intelligence because the whole packaging is around this big lie that somehow if we did things differently in Australia, the climate would be different.
Yeah, definitely. And I think what it ignores as well is the mathematical fallacy that Australia's contribution, like what are we, about 550 megatons of CO2 a year, and China is going to increase the amount of CO2 that they churn into the air by 2,900 megatons by 2030. You know who signed up to that as an agreement? Labor was in support of that. That's the Paris Agreement. The world signed up to that. We've allowed the largest emitter, the single largest emitter, to increase their emissions indefinitely, and no one's protesting it. So it's a little rich to me that you come back and you say, well, Australia going up and down by a megaton or two and ignoring the thousands and thousands and thousands of megatons that other countries are contributing. The best thing you want to do if you want to get global, the totality of emissions down, because, by the way, that's what the science says. The science says that it's the totality. It's not a geocentric emissions tally in Australia, which is causing climate change. Is that really what people are suggesting? That's so ridiculous. Yeah. If you really want to fight it, go to the UN and argue for these other big emitting countries to rapidly reduce their share.
Yeah. Now, Chris, you've followed this as closely as anybody I know over the past couple of decades. The flaw in the democracy argument against my own argument is 2007. Where both Labor and Liberal took emissions trading schemes to the electorate, and Kevin Rudd was thwarted in the Senate by the Greens and the Coalition. But this surely is the great moment in history where Rudd failed to call a double dissolution on the issue.
Well, he lacked courage that day, didn't he?
He sure did.
Look, it seems to me, to pick up my fellow commentators, there is an issue with omission in reporting of this, especially by the ABC. So there's never a focus on our successes, as you pointed out. There's no focus on the fact that our population has grown faster than any other nation, and therefore our emissions per capita have actually fallen faster than anyone else.
Yep.
And more than that, there's no focus on the United States and the fact that because of fracking, they've had the fastest and largest emissions falls of any of their large emitters. So that doesn't get said. But there's a constant focus on Western Europe, which makes a lot of promises that they never keep, and on China, which, as Jack just said, has a deal with Barack Obama signed in Brisbane to keep increasing carbon emissions until 2030 before it reaches peak carbon. I mean, in the end, none of that gets said on Four Corners.